You ignored every warning I sent. If you don't pay these HOA fines, we'll begin foreclosure on this house.
Are you finished?
I never imagined a $150 HOA fine would turn into a fight over my home. My name is David Carter, and I'd lived in Cedar Creek Estates just outside Fort Worth, Texas for almost 6 years. The neighborhood was quiet. Families waved at each other. Kids rode bicycles after school. Most weekends, neighbors gathered for backyard barbecues. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like home. I worked as a senior electrical engineer, spending most of my week traveling between commercial construction sites. When I wasn't working, I enjoyed restoring old woodworking tools in my garage. I kept my lawn trimmed, paid my dues on time, and never gave the HOA a reason to notice me. At least, that's what I thought. Everything changed after Karen Mitchell became HOA president. Karen had only lived in the community for 2 years, but she acted as if she'd personally built every house on the street. She drove a white luxury SUV, wore bright red blazers to every HOA meeting, and never walked anywhere without a clipboard tucked under one arm. Within weeks of taking office, violation notices started appearing all over the neighborhood. Trash cans left out overnight, holiday decorations taken down one day late, garden hoses visible from the sidewalk. One elderly couple received a warning because their bird feeder wasn't on the HOA's approved decorative list. People complained behind closed doors. But almost nobody challenged Karen directly. Those who did usually found themselves receiving even more violation notices. I stayed out of it, until a plain white envelope appeared in my mailbox one Monday afternoon. Across the front, in bold red letters, were the words, "Final Notice." I frowned. That didn't make sense. I hadn't received a first notice. Inside was a letter claiming I owed $150 for unauthorized exterior storage. I read the letter twice, then walked into my garage. The only thing sitting there was a folded aluminum ladder leaning neatly against the wall. The garage door had been open while I cleaned the floor the previous Saturday. Apparently, someone had driven by, taken a picture, and decided the ladder counted as visible storage. I laughed. Surely, this was a misunderstanding. I emailed the HOA that evening with photographs showing the ladder had never been left outside. 2 days later, Karen responded with exactly 9 words. The violation has been confirmed. Payment is still required. No explanation, no evidence, just a demand for money. I could have paid it. It wasn't about the amount, it was the principle. So I appealed. The HOA scheduled a hearing for the following Tuesday evening. I arrived carrying printed photographs, timestamps from my security cameras, and copies of the community guidelines. Karen barely looked at any of it. "The board has already reviewed your appeal," she said before I even sat down. "Then why invite me? You're allowed to speak." "Has anyone actually looked at my evidence?" She smiled politely. "We've reached our decision." The meeting lasted less than 6 minutes. My appeal was denied. As I walked toward the parking lot, one of the older board members quietly caught up with me. Without looking in my direction, he whispered, "Don't stop documenting everything." Before I could ask what he meant, he walked away. That sentence stayed in my mind all week. 3 weeks later, another envelope arrived. This time, the fine had grown to $1,450, late fees, administrative fees, processing fees, interest. None of it made sense. I immediately logged into my HOA account. According to their records, I now had multiple unpaid violations, some I'd never even seen. One claimed my mailbox wasn't the approved color. Another accused me of leaving trash bins on the curb for 3 consecutive days. Another cited landscaping deficiencies. Every single violation had supposedly been photographed, yet none of the photographs were attached. I requested copies. Karen refused. Instead, she sent another warning. Failure to resolve your balance may result in additional legal action. I remember staring at that sentence for a long time. It sounded less like a warning and more like a threat. That's when my next-door neighbor, Mike, walked over carrying a cup of coffee. "You got one too?" he asked. I looked at him. "You mean another violation?" He nodded. "They fined me because my American flag was too visible from the entrance road." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mike leaned closer and lowered his voice. "David, this isn't about the rules anymore." "What do you mean?" "They're trying to scare people into paying." Then he said something that completely changed the direction of the story. "There are already 3 homeowners talking to attorneys." I looked back at the growing stack of violation notices on my kitchen table. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about a $150 fine anymore. I was wondering how far Karen was actually willing to go. I was about to find out, because 5 days later, someone knocked on my front door at exactly 8:03 a.m., and standing on my porch was Karen, holding a thick red folder marked in bold black letters, "Foreclosure Notice." The moment I opened the door, Karen didn't even say good morning. She shoved the thick red folder toward my chest. "Mr. Carter, this is your final opportunity. You have 72 hours to pay every outstanding HOA fine, or the association will begin foreclosure proceedings." She sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced those words in front of a mirror. I looked at the folder but didn't touch it. Instead, I asked one simple question. "Karen, are you officially threatening to take my house?" She folded her arms. "I'm informing you of the consequences." "Based on what authority?" "The HOA governing documents." I nodded slowly. Then I reached into the mailbox beside the front door and removed a large certified envelope. "I've been waiting for you." Her confident smile grew wider. "Oh? Finally paying?" I handed her the envelope. "No." "You've just been served," she frowned. "What is this?" "My attorney asked me to give it to you personally." She opened the envelope. The first page was a formal legal demand. As she continued reading, the color slowly disappeared from her face. Because my attorney had already discovered something Karen never expected. The HOA had never legally approved most of the fines listed against my property. According to the bylaws, any fine over $100 required a formal board vote recorded in the meeting minutes. My attorney requested those minutes. They didn't exist, which meant nearly every fine Karen had issued was legally questionable. She quickly closed the folder. "This changes nothing," I smiled. "It changes everything." She turned around without another word and walked back to her SUV. The Ring doorbell recorded every second, including the moment she quietly tucked the foreclosure notice behind her seat before driving away. 3 days later, another certified letter arrived. This one wasn't from Karen. It was from my attorney. He had spent the previous week reviewing HOA financial records that were available to every homeowner. What he found was disturbing. Over the previous 18 months, HOA fine revenue had nearly tripled. Yet, almost none of that money had been used for neighborhood improvements. Instead, thousands of dollars had been spent on administrative expenses. Nobody seemed to know exactly what those expenses were. The lawsuit expanded. It was no longer just about my house. It was now about how the HOA had been operating. Word spread through Cedar Creek Estates almost overnight. Neighbors started knocking on my door. Mike was first. Then the elderly couple with the bird feeder. Then a young family who'd paid over $2,000 in fines because their work truck had been parked in their own driveway. Every family had a similar story. Every family had saved paperwork. Within 2 weeks, 9 homeowners joined the lawsuit. Karen still insisted she had done nothing wrong. At the next HOA meeting, the clubhouse was overflowing. People lined the walls. Others stood outside listening through the open windows. Karen stepped to the podium and confidently announced, "Everything the board has done has been in the community's best interest." Before anyone could respond, a voice came from the back. "Then, explain these." My attorney walked forward carrying 3 large binders. Inside were copies of financial records, board meeting minutes, violation notices, and dozens of homeowner complaints. The room became completely silent. One board member quietly leaned toward Karen. "You told us all the fines had been approved." Karen didn't answer. Another member opened the official meeting records. There were no votes, no approvals, nothing. For the first time since becoming HOA president, Karen looked nervous. 2 months later, the case reached mediation. The HOA's insurance company had reviewed the evidence, the ring camera footage, the missing meeting minutes, the financial records, the statements from homeowners. They advised the HOA to settle. Karen refused. She wanted to fight. So the case went to court. The judge spent nearly an hour reviewing the evidence. Then he asked Karen one question. "Mrs. Mitchell, can you show this court where your board legally authorized foreclosure against Mr. Carter's property?" Karen searched through her binder, page after page. Nothing. She looked toward the HOA attorney. He quietly lowered his eyes. Finally, she answered, "I can't." The courtroom fell silent. The judge closed the file. This court finds that the foreclosure threat was unsupported by the association's own governing procedures. He ordered every improper fine against my property dismissed. The HOA was required to reimburse my legal fees. Several homeowners who had joined the lawsuit received compensation as part of the settlement. The total cost to the HOA exceeded $180,000. But the biggest surprise came 1 week later. Cedar Creek Estates held a special HOA election. Every seat in the clubhouse was filled. When the votes were counted, Karen wasn't just removed as president. She received fewer votes than anyone running. A completely new board was elected that night. Their first motion passed unanimously. No homeowner would ever again receive a foreclosure threat without a full legal review and a recorded board vote. The policy became known around the neighborhood as the Carter Rule. Today, my house looks exactly the way it did before all of this started. The same porch, the same mailbox, the same neighbors waving as they walk past every evening. Sometimes new residents ask why people smile whenever they pass my driveway. Mike usually answers before I can. He points toward my front door and says, "That's the house that reminded everyone. The HOA works for the homeowners." Not the other way around, because the most expensive mistake Karen ever made was believing fear was stronger than the law.